Hello everyone and welcome to Cypher Studios, our weekly to bi-weekly segment talking about the latest updates and discussions revolving around English language anime dubbing. I'm your host Eric, and without further ado, let's get started.
What do you know? I got away with it. Pretty easily too. Makes sense. This country'd be up a creek if they convicted a firefighter of murder.
Now in terms of casting, there's nowhere near as much ground to cover as last week. But fans of the YouTube channel Jello Apocalypse should know that Brendan Blaber appeared in Funimation's simuldub of Fire Force, playing the character Miyamoto. As far as we know, this is Brendan's first official anime dub role, having voiced in various online projects including Anime Abridges, alongside some video games, shorts, and of course his own channel's content. Brendan is based in Dallas, Texas, and did appear in the English dub of This Boy Will Be Called a Villain. However, this was a drama CD, so Fire Force is still his first anime role, even if it's technically not his first dub. There is a chance he may become more involved in anime ADR in the future via studios like Funimation or Sound Cadence, but only time will tell. Then on August 7th, the NYAV Post Twitter account announced that recording for the principal roles on their dub of Promare were starting to wrap up, with the film releasing on September 17th and 19th in the US. Currently, no cast members have been confirmed, but something rather curious is this tweet made just a few hours later from Stephanie Shea, one of the head ADR directors at NYAV Post. There's no way to tell if this applies to Promare or not, but for whatever it does pertain to, the phrase veteran union actors with the added implication it's referring to an English dub might mean that we'll get to hear some old favorites sometime soon. But let's rewind all the way back to Anime Expo for a moment, where Crystal Hodgkinson reported that Studio Trigger would be supervising Promare's English dub, including making the casting choices, and this might cause some to err on the side of caution. After all, there have been rumors circulating that the new Evangelion dub was strong-armed by Studio Khara, and that their mandates may have been the cause for some of the more awkward, stiff elements of that dub. Even if these are just rumors that were never 100% confirmed, they do seem credible enough to not completely rule out as a possibility, given the studio's involvement with the dub for the third Rebuild film. Mirroring Promare, the new Evangelion ADR director, Kari Karanen, also happened to mention that the Japanese side made the casting decisions for that dub. However, it's worth specifying that this doesn't mean that all Japanese creator involvement will yield the same results. In our video on the Fooly Cooly dub, we praise the ADR team's collaboration with Kazuya Tsurumaki and the Japanese staff from Gainax, as it allowed them to interpret the subtext in more meaningful ways. Plus, given the track record of Michael Sinter-Nicholas and Stephanie Shea when it comes to working directly with the Japanese side, we are confident that this will work in the dub's favor. But for now, we'll just have to wait and see.
Okay. What is anime? This should be easy.
On August 5th, Netflix premiered the documentary Enter the Anime, which was met with mixed to negative reception from the anime community. While it did provide some insight into the thought process behind shows like Castlevania and Cannon Busters, that also felt like part of the problem, as the documentary at times felt less like a thoughtful insight into the industry and more like a promotion for the Netflix anime brand. Side note, we actually forgot to cover the new Cannon Busters trailer last week, and it's worth noting how different Sam's English voice sounds in these clips compared to the initial teaser from several years ago.
Hello, I am Sam. Hello everyone, my name is Sam.
Other common complaints include obnoxious editing that at times cut up interviews before they even had a chance to say anything informative, and a general lack of professionalism that almost exclusively frames anime with an outdated edginess that feels disconnected from the culture it comes from. This might be because Alex Buranova, the director of the documentary, actually had very little experience with the medium as mentioned in this Anime News Network article. At best, it's just dogmatic, while downright tone-deaf at worst. But hey, let's stay in our lane. This is a show about dubbing news after all, so we ought to mention that even the post-production ADR in this documentary feels really disconnected.
To know anime, we have to go to Japan.
If you're interested in features that give a better sense of what goes on in the industry, we have links to some in the description below. And thankfully, that wasn't the only bit of Netflix news that dropped this week. The Studio Ponok short film collection, Modest Heroes, will be dropping on their site on September 6th. And it was announced that our favorite metal-singing office worker will be returning with a third season, immediately making all right with the world.
Perfectly balanced, as all things should be.
On August 6th, Dragon Ball Sakuga enthusiast Anime AJ brought to people's attention the back cover of the US Blu-ray release of Dragon Ball Super's 6th part, which wraps up the Goku Black arc. One of the images it displays is apparently an uncorrected shot drawn by Yukihiro Kitano that didn't even make it into the final episode anyway, prompting the question why the Blu-ray release would use it. While it might make sense for some to blame Funimation for the error, one response came from Discotek producer Brady Hartel, who brought up that sometimes the Japanese side will provide their own resources for packaging and forbid you from choosing your own, such as with Discotek's Cheese Sweet Home release. In fact, another example includes Kuma Holdings, who were given a folder of pre-approved screenshots to use on the back cover of the Konodan Collection Volume 1. Even when those instructions or requests seem counterintuitive, licensees are beholden by the demands and provided resources of those that they work with. The relationship with the Japanese client is very straightforward. Do what they ask or you'll lose the product, or potential future work opportunities. Non-compliance with their instructions or the use of unapproved materials could either have them recall the work or pull the license altogether. In fact, these non-negotiable demands can even apply to anime dubs themselves. And if you're curious, we actually did a video breaking down what a dub team may or may not be allowed to do with a property, albeit in a very general way, which you can find in the description or the card up top. Granted, it's worth noting that Brady isn't citing this as the definitive reason for why Dragon Ball Super Part 6 had this image, as much as he's offering insight as the producer of Discotek. Things will vary between companies and based on the situation, citing how his team has proven themselves trustworthy over the past 5 years, working on Lupin the Third releases, and having a bit of leeway as a result. Regardless, examples like this lend some credence to the suggestion that the Japanese side themselves may not always have the best answer for how their properties should be treated abroad. Moving on to more favorable additions, Funimation just announced that the Gundam The Origin TV re-edit will be coming to their streaming platform, which is a much welcomed addition, serving as another means of accessing an incredibly important story in the franchise with a great dub. Then on a Funimation blog post, it was revealed that on August 5th, subscribers in the US and Canada will be able to stream both Attack on Titan live-action movies, as well as all 3 Rurouni Kenshin live-action movies. However, these additions also come with specific losses, as both Funimation as well as Crunchyroll just revealed that a few shows will be leaving their platforms, potentially as a result of their dissolved partnership, which took effect last year. Interestingly enough, it appears that only the subbed versions of Isekai Quartet, Senko-san, Strike Witches 500's first joint fighter wing takeoff, Million Arthur Season 2, and the first half of Yuno will be leaving Funimation now, while only the dubbed versions of those same titles except Yuno will be leaving Crunchyroll. At the time of the Funimation Crunchyroll deal, both were independent companies that seem to have joined forces to share the rights of certain properties and expand their own independent catalogs. Even after the deal's termination due to Sony seeking to expand Funimation's global appeal, it became unclear how this would affect future licenses that still appeared to be jointly owned by the two companies, and it's admittedly still hard to gauge the specifics since a lot of the details on these agreements were never made available to the general public. However, it appears that at least part of the agreement involved Funimation owning the exclusive streaming rights to the dubs of certain shows, while Crunchyroll owned the exclusive subbed rights, with both companies having sole distribution rights over specific titles, which isn't nearly as uncommon as you might think, but this agreement still seemed to allow both companies to carry out these deals on a much grander and public scale. It's unknown to what extent we'll see other titles affected moving forward. And while we're on the topic of questionable business moves, for all you Macross fans that are still bummed about the news Harmony Gold dropped on us back at AX, it might still be worth looking at this recently released Answer Man column about the situation, especially since it was just revealed to be one of the last 3 Justin Savakis will write. Even if we do have to take a lot of what he writes about at his word, we appreciate the bits of insight he has shared for us over the years. Finally, this last bit isn't really Western anime news related, but one of the greatest movies of this generation, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, is available for purchase on Amazon with a Japanese dub, featuring many prolific seiyuu including Kensho Ono as Miles Morales, Mamoru Miyano as Peter Parker, Yuki Aoi as Gwen Stacy, Rie Takahashi as Penny Parker, and Akio Otsuka as Spider-Man Noir. If you happen to check it out, let us know what you think in the comments down below. That wraps up this week's episode, and don't forget to check the description in order to follow up on anything that we discussed. If you have any thoughts on the stuff we talked about, please leave a comment down below, like the video in order to help out the channel, subscribe for more content like this, and become a patron for certain benefits. If there's anything else you'd like us to cover, feel free to reach out to us on our Twitters, which will be linked down below, as well as to use the special hashtag CypherDubNews, and we'll do our best to fact check the information. Special shout out to Marissa Lenti for fact checking some of this episode's info and for being a loyal patron of the channel, alongside Regan Carriere, Ryan Rodriguez, Seth Phillips, JR Pictures, and Unknown Secret 1000. This has been Cypher Studios, and until next time.